Okay, we're in a new section now for this VTC course on Sony's Vegas Pro 12. But despite being in a new section, in some ways we're actually going to continue our exploration of how we manipulate our files, and in particular how we can manipulate our events once we start building up our timeline. You'll remember back in the copying and cutting and pasting and duplicating events tutorials that appeared in the previous section where we looked quite specifically at editing events on our timeline. Well, you'll remember that we saw how to perform all those functions that I just mentioned. Additionally, we also saw how we delete events from the timeline too. In particular, we discussed deleting events when we spoke about cutting events, and in that specific tutorial, you'll no doubt remember that when we do cut an event from the timeline, what we cut actually gets stored on the PC's clipboard, and it's from the clipboard that we can subsequently paste the event, or partial event, back onto the timeline at a new position. So that's what happens when we actually cut an event or multiple events. However, by contrast, when we delete an event or a range from within a single event, or indeed a range from across multiple events, what we delete gets discarded completely. As we now realise, we can't subsequently paste back in onto the timeline this discarded media, be it all of it or a ranged partial area. I'll remind you what I mean. The quickest way to delete a full media event is to select it first and then hit the delete key on your keyboard. So I'll select this video file and hit delete, and there you go. As expected, it's disappeared. It's been removed and I can't bring it back by pasting. You'll no doubt remember the shortcut for pasting is Ctrl+V, which is what I'm doing now, and despite doing this, it's having no effect. No matter how many times I hit the shortcut combination of Ctrl+V, it's still not going to bring it back in, what I've just deleted from the timeline. It resolutely refuses to bring the deleted event back onto my timeline, and that's because it hasn't saved it to the clipboard, which is the only way it would be able to paste it back in. Now don't be alarmed by this deletion of the event. It's not been deleted from your hard drive, it's just had its reference to it, the actual event, it's had its reference to it deleted. The file is still available in our media panel, or if we even looked at our Explorer panel, to subsequently be able to re-drag and drop it onto our timeline as many times as we would like to use it. Okay, I'll hit the undo button up here to bring that event back in. Be aware though that this undo method didn't store it on my clipboard like cutting does. Undoing simply takes the project back to the state it was in before your previous last action. So now it's back on our timeline once again. I'll select it once more, and this time I'll go up to edit and then I'll drop down to where it says delete there. And by clicking on there, of course, as we would expect, it works the same way. It's deleted the event from the timeline, and again it hasn't deleted it from the hard drive, it's just deleted the reference, the event container. It's only deleted this reference from our timeline. One more look at this. This time I'll bring in two video files. I'll drag and drop these two files onto the timeline, and if I want to delete them both simultaneously, I can do simply by having them both selected, and you select them both by holding down the Control key once you've selected the first one whilst clicking. Okay, so then, now by just hitting delete on my keyboard, well, this removes them both from the timeline. Simple enough then. That's a quick run through deleting events and the difference between deleting events and cutting events. Well, that's what we can do to delete the whole video clip and its embedded audio. If I just want to delete the audio part of the video event, then you'll remember I have to initially de-link the audio from the video before I can select the audio in isolation. As a reminder, this is what we do to de-link the audio from the video. You'll remember that I can use a shortcut to do this. First, I need to ensure the event is selected to use the shortcut, and the shortcut method is to simply hit the U key. Now, I'm not going to use that method, I'll use the long cut method by right-clicking on the audio event and then running up to Group and then Fly Out and choose Remove From. And this now means I can left-click on the audio and freely move it around. However, that's not what I want to do. I want to remove it. Well, of course, that's easy enough. Now, simply hit the Delete key to remove it. Easy, done. Now I'll select the video only part that remains and hit delete to remove that. One final thing I want to point out is the major difference between deleting the event from your timeline, as we have been doing here, and deleting the file from your project media panel. Remember, I've been stressing throughout this course that the way Vegas works is by utilizing references to the files on your hard drive to what are effectively simple links to the file name placed initially in your project media panel before subsequently moving to the timeline. Well, if you choose to select a file reference here in the Project Media panel, as opposed to selecting it on your timeline, and then right-click on this file reference and run down here, you can choose from two options: Remove from Project, and below it, Remove from Project and Delete File, or Files. Well, before you do anything else, you do need to consider these two options carefully. Now, to help you understand the difference, I'll reference a file on our timeline, first by dragging and dropping down here to the timeline, and then by looking at the timeline at this event, I can right-click on the event, as we've done many times already, and roll to the Delete option. Okay, nothing new there. I'll click on our Redo button. Now, instead of that option, I'll right-click on the same event file reference here in our Media panel and roll down to Remove from Project. As soon as I select it, I see this warning dialog box stating the selected media is in use in the timeline. Remove from the Project Media list and remove all timeline references. Okay, so I'm being questioned here, but that question informs us what will occur should I select this option to hit my delete key. Now, I won't accept it, so I'll hit the cancel button. And now, if I right-click once more on the file reference and roll down this time to Remove from Project and Delete Files, then I'll see this warning question message: Remove from Project and Delete Files from System. And I also see the file path below too. I'll hit the cancel button because I don't want to do that. But you can see, therefore, by those warning questions, the ramifications of choosing those options and the effect it will have not just on your project, but also the original files on your system, as opposed to the simple file references we see within Vegas Pro 12. Right, I'm going to finish up here then, now that we've had a good look at how we can delete events, not just from our timeline, but also the difference between deleting on the timeline and deleting here in the Project Media window.